be sold. Well, okay, if that's what you need. I'm still filled with color, still filled with light, still ready for liftoff, ready for flight, and I'm still out here waiting. Please don't leave. You started to build me in 2002. Remember that day you painted me blue. I know there's some rust, but it can be cleaned. You drew my schematics and salvaged my parts. You put me together with so much of your heart. Can't you use just a bit of this old dream? I'm still filled with color, still filled with light, still ready for liftoff, still ready for flight, and I'm still out here waiting. Please don't leave. Thank you.
I am personally so very happy to have Lanna back with us, so please join me in welcoming Lanna Cairns.
Well, I'm so grateful to be here today. I always feel that we teach what we need to learn, that we write books about what we need to read about, that we are really in this conversation in a deep way all the time. So I'm grateful that I'm here today. You know, it was just, I was in Big Sky a couple of weeks ago or a month ago now on a retreat, and I bought a bumper sticker there and it says, and it's on my car, and it says, "Respond with love." And I thought it was for all the other drivers around me. And now when I get into my car, I'm like, let's put the Respond with Love bow on and get in my car. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak today. I'm also grateful that we live in a country where we have freedoms. And as Linda said, I'm from Canada, but I'm now an American citizen. And when I see the American flag, and especially when you're driving in the country somewhere and it's blowing in the wind, and it symbolizes for me freedom. Freedom to be who you want to be, what you want to do. And when I think that just recently, I think this past week, that women in Saudi Arabia are finally allowed to drive a car, that I'm so grateful as a woman that I'm up here expressing my feelings about my God, the God of my own heart. So I'm grateful that I live in a country where this is possible. And lastly, I'm grateful for all of you who have kept the light on here, who have shown such exemplary leadership as the center finds its leader. And I'm really grateful because places like this matter. I was just in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, where I come from. Joni Mitchell's from there, and about a million wheat farmers, and myself. And I was at the center there, and there must have been about maybe 40 people. Well, when I grew up there, you know, in 1932, there was a Catholic church and a couple Episcopalian churches. And for little Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, to have a center like this, led by a practitioner, 40 people, was so inspirational. And I had the fortune of meeting two people when I was leaving that day, and they were at university. One was studying English in her second year, and one was studying, I think, biology in her third year. And I said, you know, why do you come to the center? Why are you here? And she said, it's the most positive thing that happens to me all week. So I thought, boy, just for one person to be invigorated by their truth of who they are is so remarkable. And to have this center here as a real grounding place for the city of Salt Lake. I don't take, we know with the last election, and I won't say anything political after this, that democracy is very fragile, that centers like this are very fragile. So that there's something here is really great. So I just want to give a shout out to my homies in the audience, just to say thank you. Thank you, everyone. So I think we're all here because we're awakened to something that's stirring within us. Whether that's finding love, romance, money, whatever it is, we're all here. Not just that, but a deeper sense of connection. And we're awakened to that there's something else stirring in our conversation. And it's really our perception that we're looking at here. Our perception, I was looking for Halloween glasses, I couldn't find any, but it's the glasses we wear. What comes out in our eyes is what we see in the world. So perception is king, is queen in our philosophy. I always think when people come through the doors here that we hang up our responsibility or someone else's responsibility at the door, and we walk in willing and ready to repair our lives. And we say in religious science that we're here to heal the sense of separation from our beloved. And that's the work we really do. Mary Morrissey, the wonderful Reverend Mary Morrissey, spoke at Big Sky, and she said something that was so profound, and I imagine all of you know of it, but it has really been part of my consciousness since I've been back. And she said that it's not done to you, but it's done for you. Let's say that together 3 times. It's not done to me, but for me. It's not done to me, but for me. It's not done to me, but for me. Rumi mentions that any wound we have or sense of disorganization or lack of time, whatever the conversation is, the wound is where the light enters. So we're taught in our philosophy that we embrace what is, that we don't pass judgment on it, we just accept it and move forward. So perception in our philosophy really matters. I think we're all here not to find happiness. The happiness project, I think, is fleeting, is impermanent. I think what we're here to find is a sense of wholeness, a deep sense of wholeness, not a diet on junk food, but a diet on whole foods, a diet that allows that greater good to come in our life through us, as us, and appear as it. So our job is in this wholeness seeking is to clear up stuff inside of us, stuff that we've learned how to be for many years. I'm going to give an analogy of going to the dentist, and this will be kind of gruesome, but we'll just let it go. Anything goes in religious science. Thank God we're here because it's freedom at the top. But you think about it when you go to the dentist, and you go perhaps every 6 months to get your teeth cleaned. And I calculated this morning that we roughly eat, 3 meals a day, occasional snacks, maybe 5 snacks a day. I know of people like that. And you think that's about 540 meals in that 6-month time. And your dental hygienist has to take an electric saw, an electric drill to remove the plaque from your teeth, right? And you feel so refreshed and revitalized. You feel like you've had a body massage for 5 hours because your gums are alive again. So you think about us having these thoughts about our own limitations and justifying them and fighting for them for 20, 30 years until ever we come here and be awakened to something that we know is the truth within our being. So I became awakened in this philosophy when I was about 26, 27. I was living in LA, left a horrible relationship with $50. Left him, moved into a studio apartment in where was that now? In Sherman Oaks. My first rent check bounced. And I'm living next to a practitioner of religious science at Agape. And she said, you better come to our church. I think you really And I was not a church person. I grew up, Catholic, left it in the 8th grade. I have a graduate degree in religious studies. I've been a practitioner for almost 10 years. I'm always in this conversation now, But at that point, I really wasn't. And so she said, come, and he just come once and I'll take you out for lunch, which is always a good motivation for me. Food and spirituality, hand in hand. So I went to Agape that Sunday, and who performs is Macy Gray, who's an amazing, vibrant singer. And I thought any center that would host an amazing singer, almost as good as Rick, but not close, or Minnie here, that it awakened me to something. And Reverend Michael Beth said, you are whole, complete, and perfect just the way you are. That nothing inside of you needs to change. We're here to realize our God-given power, our God-given glory. So we're in this conversation that consciousness is everything, consciousness is king, is queen, and that we're here to take full responsibility of our lives, to let go of what didn't work, and to embrace the newness, possibilities, openness, connection, relationship. Is that why we're all here? Because we know there's something within us. There's a great author, Neville Goddard, who wrote a book called Power of Awareness and Feelings Are the Secret. And he says something so profound. He says, when you realize that consciousness is the one and only reality, and I always forget this, thank God I'm not on Broadway, you are free from the belief that there's any causes outside of your own mind that can affect your life. And I'll say that again. When you realize that consciousness is the one and only reality, you are free from the belief that there are causes outside of your own mind that can affect your life. How many agree with that? Right? That's where we're at. So one principle working, and that it's all the attitude towards yourself. So when I'm not wearing my sari and my shoes from India, hello, without the little whippity-whoop, Rob says I need that little tassel. When I'm not wearing this, as Linda said, I'm a professional organizer. I'm also a mother and a dog lover and busy person. But I started a business in 1998 in Los Angeles. And in that business environment, it was where the National Association of Professional Organizers started in 1983. 5 women from the South Bay started this group. So it's NAPO, not the National Association of Pizzeria Owners, which I could have been the president for the rest of my life, but the National Association of Professional Organizers. And so the conversation has always been about clutter, clutter, clutter. And just recently, I was just at Sprouts Market, and I noticed on the cover of a magazine, it said 125 ways to get organized. So right there, I just have to, what is it on my bumper sticker? Respond with love. And I realized that's not the conversation. So in my book, in a contemporary look, I'm going to move away from the conversations of clutter to chaos. I'm going to move, and what that is in your life, I'm going to move away from the conversation of getting more done, but getting the right things done. So it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter. I'm going to move away from the conversation of always doing to being. And in this afternoon, we're going to look at time differently, not in a linear way, but in a circular way. So that should entice you enough to come, because you will learn some magic about how to deal with time. And all the proceeds go to the center. So let's make it rock. So we're going to move away from that conversation of kind of a 1985 version to a contemporary version of organization. George Carlin once said, and I know Reverend Lynn and everyone quotes Krishnamurti and, Lao Tzu. I quote George Carlin and Phyllis Dillard at the end. So that's how I roll, the spiritual comedian that I definitely would like to be. But he once said that we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people that we don't even like, in theory. Right? Hello. George, rest in peace wherever you are, because you're a rocker, you know it. So when we realize how important our physical space is to how we live our life, we change things. They say in the organizing world that we organize what we prioritize. So if you prioritize your time in that sacred flow, in that energetic place, that we have to spend time in it. We have to spend time not just sitting in our cushion, reading sacred texts, doing community work. There's so many ways that we can serve our beloved. And it's better doing that building that connection than it is, going to Target or Super Target and filling ourselves up with stuff. It's easy to do. Our world tells us that we need more to be happy. What do you mean you only have 2 cars? What do you mean you only have 25 skirts? What do you mean you only have 200 books? But that's okay, because knowledge. Make America great again? No, make America smart again. That's what we're all about. So we're all for books, right? But we all have that area of stuff in our lives that we just have to examine. That's kind of a block in how we function. I believe that spirit is moving through us, as us, all the time. And I call it the Cosmic Swirl, because I love when my little boys go get ice cream and that swirly, swirly. I just love that so much. So everything's about food disguised as God in my sermon. But I call it that cosmic swirl that comes in you, as you, through you, and expresses itself as you in the world. So any blocks that we have, blocks that we're told that, well, who are you to live in that house? Or who are you to find that message in your life? Or who are you to find love? These are blocks we have that we just come in this incarnation with. That we're here to minimize, reflect, get to know them. But let that cosmic swirl come in through us unobstructed, free-flowing, moving in this powerful energy that can heal our life. So organizing is about mindfulness. And it's not about the John Kabat-Zinn mindfulness, as many of you know, who created body-mind work, just a blessing on the planet. His work is so great. There's a teacher at Red Butte who follows his methodology and teaches meditation classes there, Vicki Albright, very good. But he defines mindfulness as being conscious of what you're doing without any judgment. Pretty fair. But I think as religious scientists, mindfulness for me is a lot more than that. It's about knowing that cosmic swirl in your life as your life, and knowing that everything you do is because of that beloved energy. So to see life, to be an emissary, an ambassador of God, that's what mindfulness is. So I'm reflecting, knowing that I am used through spirit. Reverend Michael Beckwith talks about once you've met the financial, the love, the house, the occasional trip, whatever, we can then ask ourselves, how can we then serve spirit? How does God need to work through me as me? So mindfulness is being aware of that we are fed through one life, one by one life, and that's God. That's the beloved in your life. And so for me, God appears as love. For others, creativity, music, song, giving, working in hospice, several of you here who work in that deep, profound way. So how does God show up at your life? Who is your God? So my God is love. And I know when I withhold myself from it, when I step back because I feel threatened or an issue emerges, I withhold my love. So it's always an indication where I'm in that conversation of how much of God can I let in. So know what triggers you, what keeps you separate from that source of all. And we develop in this way, we do workshops in this way, we study this philosophy because it is so powerful how it affects us. I always think before, when we come to church, we should have a before photo of religious science, would be like, and then we have an after photo, and we're like, with our medieval lyre playing, eating grapes, right? Because we know the truth of who we are, and we're affirmed. When I see everybody in the audience, it deeply moves me that we're all here on this mission to find our greater good in our life. So before to after, and that's how it is. I was just going to quote my book here. What can be really life-changing, however, is having a mindful relationship with what we think about, what we surround ourselves with, and how we relate to our daily activities. When you're moving through life with belongings that just bury you, you leave no room for anything new to land in your life. If you clog up the movement of divine energy with all your stuff, you block out new possibilities from entering. And you figure this out. I cannot tell you how many homes I've been in, offices I've been in, lecturing to CEOs. It's always the same conversation, that we have so much stuff in our lives, that it requires physical, mental, psychological, spiritual undertakings. It's not just about cleaning out the pantry. It's another evolution of our being. The connection we have when we buy things to the planet, who makes them, who produces them, sweatshops using, I go into the container store and I see all those plastic containers and I think, how is that made? What natural resource do we use for that? So, what we do, how we spend our money has a great influence on how we live our life, but also the situation of the planet. And it's amazing when we justify our suffering, when we justify our accumulation of things. I've heard every excuse in the book. When I tell people I'm a professional organizer, they usually run away. So if I'm not big about you, no, just kidding, you'll go, oh, how do you like the organizing world? But I will, they'll either run away or they'll start confessing because we judge our past actions, that we just can't keep it together. But we learn from how we were raised. It's like all these books on parenting. It's really you parent how you were parented. You parented how your mom and dad treated you. Hopefully we can always improve upon that. But, organizing's like that. We learn from how we saw it at home, how our teachers perhaps demonstrated that. So we can let go of judgment because nobody knows what they're doing, really, in life. Yeah. I was working on this sermon till about midnight, so hey, we all just go with the flow with good energy. So I have a quote here that I always say to myself, and perhaps I'll say it once, and let's say it again 3 times, because remember, we're getting those barnacles. We're removing the barnacles from our brain that tell us, that justify our suffering, if you will, or our limitations. I have a quote that I say, I free myself from the need and burden of stuff, and I am open to the creative vibration of the universe to fill me up. So let's say the first part 3 times and the second part 3 times. I free myself from the need and burden of stuff. I free myself from the need and burden of stuff. I free myself from the need and burden of stuff. I am open to the creative vibration of the universe to fill me up. I am open to the creative vibration of the universe to fill me up. I am open to the creative vibration of the universe to fill me up. I am open to the creative vibration of the universe to fill me up. So if your space supports your soul, then all is well. And I call them these snags in life that we all have. Everyone has them. I bet the Dalai Lama still prays for the Chinese. I think this incarnation, if we're in this body, we're about healing something. And they're just little snags that come up. Little snags of disorganization or, oh my goodness, now my mother's getting older, I have to deal with all of that stuff. And then I have kid clutter, and then I have Legoland. And, it's really, we're always working towards clearing up stuff, clearing up our mind, clearing up our space. And they work hand in hand, right? I can go into a space and I can tell you pretty much how that person's doing, how they're feeling, how they're thinking. What we do when we want to get organized is we go buy more stuff. Yeah, hello. Container store sees us and they go, come on in, come on in. You need more stuff because you're disorganized. And so we buy more stuff. We spend hundreds of dollars on things thinking that's going to be the remedy when it isn't. It's the choices, the decisions we make before we enter the store. Because how many of you, you go to a superstore and Canada, if you go to a super Target, you go in to buy kitty litter and you walk out with a sombrero, You go into, you want to you're reading about something at Barnes & Noble and suddenly you're walking out with your lunch and, some tchotchkes. There's so much that takes us away from really being centered when we go in. So I know when I need to consume or feel that need, I go for a walk. I take my dogs and they center me and they fill me up. But I know right then I don't want to spend money that I don't have to impress people that aren't, So I don't even go in unless I know what I need. They say in the organizing world that it's always need. Do you need it or do you want it? And we need very little, but we want so much. And we think that wanting is going to fill us up, when we know it's always the connection with our God that truly fills us up. So either we go the diet of, junk food, or we do the diet of spirituality. So I believe that we live under an umbrella, and that umbrella has two things going in it: a force of good, and that we're always under God's grace. Always, every decision, everything you have in life, that there's always a force of good reaching out to you. My lovely minister in Napa, Reverend Janet Garvey-Stanvik, and she's now retired, living in Nelson, BC with her family. She says that, you're just always one thought away from your good. One thought. I don't need to know the logistics. I don't need to know how it's going to happen. I don't need to know who's going to be involved. I just have to turn towards the light and walk and trust and have faith and pray until I see it take form. So that force of good is a powerful force. It's a powerful force in our life, always present, always willing, always there. And when I think about grace, I think of that lovely, wonderful lady, Maya Angelou, who was so the embodiment of God. And I just saw an interview with her and Oprah. This is a while back, and she talks about when she came to the realization of how much God loved her. And she sits and she just cries. Somebody so powerful, so wise, so beautiful, to feel that she's not enough in the mind of God. And then she feels that, and she shows us what that feeling is. So that we're always under grace. We're just one thought away from our good. We just have to turn to what's possible to receive it. So you don't have to know how to get organized. You just have to know, I want to change. I want to have more control over my incoming mail, my paper, my finances, my photos. Technology doesn't save us. It makes us crazy. It does. That addiction we have. I took my kids the other day while many of you were reading Krishnamurti, Lao Tzu. I was at Captain Underpants. and I'm in the theater, and I'm trying to enjoy this movie. I love the author. I met him at King's English, and an exceptional person. And so I'm watching that movie. Remember my bumper sticker? I'm watching that movie, and the movie ends, and everybody gets up, and everybody goes right to their phone. All the parents. Everyone's phone's lit up. So this affliction we have of doing, I catch myself at it. I'll watch a show with my kids, we'll all be knitting. Or I'll watch a news show and I'll be playing chess with them or something. Or they'll be wanting to watch a movie and I'm on my laptop working away. That we seldom do one thing at a time, right? We're always multitasking. It's not just, what we do. It's not just an option. It's what we do and how we live our lives. So it's about bringing it down, being focused, being still, knowing who you are, and creating a lifestyle that reflects your real needs. And we study that here in this philosophy. When I was raised Catholic, we had our Holy Communion. I remember I won the Virgin Mary pen because I knew my prayers, and I'll never forget I got this beautiful pen that just till to this day I think about. But after that, the conversation of any self-reflection stopped. I would go to my Catholic church and I would count all the tiles in the ceiling. I would count all the angels. I would count all the incense candles burning. But there was nothing inside that I had to work at. I would just have to recite prayers. So, here we are really trying to make our life work, making our life simpler, making our life better so that divine flow can move through us unobstructed. So when you allow your connection, you thrive. So we make some choices in life. Does that choice move us to peace, or does that choice move us to chaos? Does that choice move us to connect with our higher self, or does it take us away? So what we have to do in religious science is focus on what we desire, not what we fear, not what we don't have, because we justify what we keep, what we have in our life. And this doesn't become more evident as when you're organizing someone's closet. Sad to say, that we fight to keep our stuff. We fight to say, someday I will get into that size again. I know I will. Or that crochet jumpsuit was from my mother and it reminds me of her and I need to keep it. And we always hear the truth after the but. Well, I really like it, but it was my mother's. I really want to keep it, but, it doesn't make me feel great, or we justify it in a way of saying something that we have to keep it. So if we're sensitive to what we have in our house, we have to be mindful of what we bring in. It's like there's a reason why yoga came to be. So when we're flexible enough, we can sit long enough. So when we make our transition and go through that bardo state, they say in Tibetan Buddhism, that we're conscious of those emotional connections that keep us back spinning into another realm of an earthly existence, right? So it's very interesting when we see that flurry of activity around us. We really have to be mindful of what we have in our lives, because that time when we sit in meditation, there's a deeper reason of why we do it. There's a deeper reason why we have a consciousness and what we're here to do. So to focus on what we desire, not what we fear, and that God of good is always there all the time. Another thing that I like is called mentalization. And I don't know if it's a religious science term, and Mary, the keeper of wisdom here, will know. But what we do in religious science is we hold a consciousness, a space for that experience to land in. So we only work in our minds. We work in the invisible. We're not magicians, even though I thought it'd be interesting giving a sermon with a top hat and a cane and maybe some soft shoe, tap dancing. But, we work in that infinite goodness that we don't see but we feel, right? That we see, we know, we don't, but we feel it in our lives. So that mental mold we have is where that experience lands. So if you take that cosmic swirling through you and it appears above you, and you take your cookie cutter, because it's food and God. That should have been my talk. And you take that cookie cutter and you impress it in the consciousness of God. The form that it takes is what you experience. So we're the ones with the cookie cutters cutting out what we need to experience. And we call that mentalization, when we hold that place in our mind for that experience to land in. And I believe, I've been a practitioner now for 10 years, that we treat and we move our feet. That we treat until I see it in my life. Other practitioners and ministers say once and you're good. For me, that doesn't work. I need to know that it's coming my way. So when I was in Napa and I was single and it was a very sad time in my life, I went to the practitioner who was manifesting what I wanted. And I saw her every week. She would actually see me coming. She would go, whoa, here she comes again. But I believe that we keep our minds, our consciousness on that prize of what we want, that we stay focused. And we do that in community with what we read, what we study, that we make sure that we walk in faith until we see it take form. So that mental mold we have is what we do, and that experience lands in it. And sometimes life just happens. Sometimes the things aren't that great. I don't think it's all great all the time. I don't think these natural disasters are all great, how people suffer. Maybe we're awakened that we really have to do something about our planet, and that's the good thing. But people suffer, and that's not good. So how do we go about healing? And what do we do as conscious light walkers in the world to help those who suffer, right? Once we get all the goodies in our life and we volunteer and help, how can we make the world a better place? It's big stuff. So I say in my book that a life that is free from chaos, unnecessary interruptions, and constant stress over the mundane is possible, as long as you're mentally holding the vision of that possibility inside of yourself. If your vision inspires faith and action, you're on your way to manifesting your wish as a reality. An organized life is possible. You have to desire it, to think it, to have it. See, the imagination we have in the universe is what drives us, is the gas in the cosmic tank. That we dream about what we desire. And then we always have stories around it, but we're still dreaming of what we desire. And we have this space to support one another in that journey. So the work we do here is big stuff. It changes our life, and it changes the world. So if your vision that inspires faith and action, you're really good to go. So why do we get organized? I think there's something on the planet that we all yearn for, and that's that deeper connection with our source, our beloved. You know, there's nothing like finding God in nature. You do that alpine loop, and boy, wow, something special is happening. You see Cyrus today, the little baby, sitting there. Well, he can't do anything else, I guess, but he's just sitting there. But the love and the energy, the pureness, the holiness in that sentient being. What a beautiful ambassador of love today. So the goal in life, to find whatever you can to find that place of centeredness, where time stops and you feel connected to something deep within. Remember that there's always a source of good in your life, and you're always under God's grace. Your life grows richer as you invest the time and attention in contemplation. Simple living is achieved by acknowledging that all life flows from one source, God. When you connect with that source, you desire less. You desire less of that stuff, and you desire relationships and connection. I think what all this journey is about is community, is about loving people, helping people. And we do that disguised as, a musician, as a bookstore owner, as hospice worker, as teachers, as caregivers, whatever it is. But we use that source in us to heal the planet. And when we heal ourselves, when we heal our space, then we're moving greater in that energy. I know when I purge, even my office, I'll be moving in about 6 months, and I purged my whole house already, because that's how I roll. And and it was amazing the stuff I had that I didn't need it, that I gave it away to people who need stuff. And actually, you know what? People don't need, people need things, but the way that we purge, you go to Desert Industries, and there's just this volume of clothes that they can't even handle, volume of stuff. But I know when I purge, I feel lighter. The Jains in India believe that everything has an energetic vibration to it. Do you feel that sometimes when you purge your office or your papers or your photos or even your car? Your car becomes a cafeteria, That, wow, when we're moving through stuff, when we purge it, we feel lighter, we feel better. We feel connected to something more, So this is how, it influences and affects us. 2 Corinthians 13:11 says, if you put things in order, the God of love and peace will be with you. So if you put your affairs in order and you're responsible for things, love and peace happens. So we go to our good, we go to our God. I found my husband at church. I went to God. I wasn't there finding a husband. I needed to find a peaceful mind to enable that to flow in. And once you purge things, once you let go of things, what lands in your life are the right things. But we have to get up to do it. And it requires so much energy of us to do it that we do need support or help in that journey. So I'm going to ask the practitioners to come up, if we're all ready. And we're going to close in a prayer. And I want to spend a couple minutes in a meditation prayer for all of us. So maybe a little longer. So if the practitioners just want to sit on the stage, they're welcome to. And if you care to close your eyes, everyone, as I read a prayer to you, knowing that these practitioners are here to serve you in your highest and best. So just come together in this one mind, in this one heart. And so this journey for us begins shifting an understanding of myself and how I can live my life in an organized and peaceful way. Feeling the presence of divine order and perfection in everything that is all around us. I know that there is order and majestic design in all creation, and a peaceful, organized life is possible now. Knowing that I'm birthed in that creative source, I'm always welcoming thoughts of possibility and joy to lead the way in creating an organized life now. My life is peaceful and organized now. I breathe in thoughts of openness and success, realizing that I have everything within me to live an organized life. My life is peaceful and organized now. I am so grateful that the intelligence behind all experience is the same intelligence that lives inside of me. My life is peaceful and organized now. I set this prayer in motion, knowing that thy will be done for the highest and best and for all involved. That my life is peaceful and organized now. So my mind, time, and space at home and at work are in order. And I now feel a greater sense of peace and purpose in all that I do. So I know that one life is moving through us now as we say these words, as we set the intention of peace in our lives, in our space, in our minds, in our world, that it's all one, that we're all related to one another, as Teresa said earlier, that we're beholden to this connection of community and love and support. So I know as I erase those thoughts that do not serve me, as I open my heart to a greater good, to a greater possibility, it so happens that change moves in that direction. So I trust and I have faith, knowing that there's a greater sense of purpose in my life. It comes in me, through me, as me, and reflects to me what it is, how much I allow of that in my life. So I am grateful for this philosophy. I am grateful for the Ernest Holmes, the Emma Curtis Hopkins, the Thomas Trowards, the Emersons, the Thoreaus, the Mary Morrissey, for Joan Borisenko, all these great teachers that are in this movement, always reminding us of who we are. So I know the center finds its right leader, its right person, that the board is operating on the highest and best vibration to attract that person here. That person is on its way to lead this beloved community. And so I'm grateful today for all the logistic people who put this service into motion, the musicians, the technical people, the practitioners who are here to serve and to see you as how you see yourself. So I'm just so deeply grateful for this experience. I know thy will be done for the highest and best all the time. And together with one heart, with one mind, we simply say, and so it is. Amen. Thank you.